So anyway, let's get started. If we haven't met yet, my name is David. I'm passionate about learning how things and how people work. So I love to code, and I'm really interested in psychology too. Um, yeah, so let's go. First, so what I learned in 2020, or what I started learning at least, I spent quite some time working on Next.js and Tailwind for the same project actually. Um, I really liked the philosophy behind both of these. Not quite, they're two different concepts. Next.js is server-side rendering for React basically, and Tailwind is customizable Bootstrap. So that's kind of not fair to either of them, but in Bootstrap, there's a number of components already pre-built, and Tailwind doesn't have any of that. But what it does have is all the kind of utility classes that there is in Bootstrap, the P1, P2, and so on. It takes those and brings them even further, and all the kind of all the columns and stuff like that is on the same principle of customizable classes, and so it gives you a lot more flexibility. It doesn't have as much pre-built as Bootstrap has, but it gives you a lot more flexibility in how you can set up your layout and your structure of the page, and how you can set up your different cards and components. You kind of built it yourself instead of having it all pre-made, which gives us more flexibility to do different stuff that's more personal, unique, so on. Also learn use effect and use context. Use effect is not my most complicated hook. Use context is slightly more involved. I spent quite some time working with Redux, and I wasn't really convinced by the whole kind of put all your eggs in one basket in one place, having all your application logic managed together in one place. Use context has kind of a more domain-centric logic where it's by slice of managing user state, managing the state for this, state for that, in a kind of with a separation of concerns. And I found it a lot more sane to work with, and a lot less boilerplate than there is in like Redux. I also spent some time trying to wrap my head around the API platform to build a GraphQL API. I've built a number of APIs before with Node.js. API platform comes with GraphQL out of the box, but if you want to do stuff that's kind of not exactly what was planned, then it gets a bit more complicated. It works with the entity system from Doctrine, and if you want to kind of step outside of that, yeah, it gets complicated fast. I also spent some time working with CSS Grid and Flexbox, and it was interesting in terms of the concepts. I'm not a big fan of CSS in general. Not my cup of tea. But CSS Grid is probably the closest thing that there is to what makes sense in my mind for CSS, in terms of positioning and flow and stuff. So I'm going to be looking more into that, I guess. 2021 stuff I want to learn, projects I want to learn with the project. For me, there's no point in learning a language if it's not for some specific application. So typically I wouldn't have learned Dart, which is the language of Flutter, for any other reason than to use Flutter. And I started learning Flutter a bit, and I'm going to go a bit further, and probably I'd like to release an app or two. We'll see how that goes. I mean, I've released a number of apps for companies I work with, but I like to release kind of like a personal project. I have a number of ideas, but nothing really concrete. We'll see how that goes. I'd like to push a bit more. I've started dabbling in machine learning, AI, Um, I want to see how that goes. One possible use case might be for a trading bot using Python or TypeScript. The preferred way of doing things is with Python for everything machine learning or data science. But I prefer TypeScript, so we'll see how that goes. The main problem is that I don't really have an API here in France for anything other than crypto. Typically, Robinhood doesn't work in France. So I'm looking for something that allows me to trade something else other than crypto. For me, in crypto, the only viable things I'd really be looking to invest in terms of trading is Bitcoin and Ethereum. And the problem is that both are correlated with each other. So it's not, in terms of risk, it's not the best idea. It's kind of just trading in one instrument. It's not quite that, but so I'd like to be able to diversify and to trade in different instruments, but I need an API for that, and I'm not sure there's one available in France. I haven't seen any, at least. Not like there is Robinhood, for example. Next, I need to build for work a data pipeline, data warehouse, data lake. I'll be using Kubejs to, I think, query all that. We'll see how that goes. Bit of learning to do there. Rust has been systematically at the head of the Stack Overflow developer surveys year on year for the last 5 years or so. So I want to understand why it's so popular. I don't really see why that is. What makes it so far ahead of all the rest? Because it is really, way ahead in terms of popularity. And I've taken a quick look at it, just like, a quick stroll through the tutorial without actually getting all that much done. I'm looking for a kind of a good use case where it makes sense to try it out and see how it works, and I haven't found that yet. If there was an app framework, if you know of any app frameworks that use it, that might be interesting. And in fact, if you know of any APIs that work in Europe, I'd be interested for trading. Sorry, I'd be interested in learning about that as well. And lastly, I'm looking into this, learning how Solidity works and Ethereum. We had a project at the company where we started using Ethereum. It didn't go anywhere. It was just a proof of concept. And I'd like to see how that goes. And the thing that worries me is how do you patch code that is immutable? I think there's probably something I don't quite understand there. So in terms of how can you be agile and update your code and patch your code if that code can't change? There's probably something I don't understand yet. So we'll see. And looking at how Ethereum 2 comes along. Not there yet. Haven't been there for, anyway, one day. Anyway, that's it from me. Happy 2021. Let's hope and pray it's better than 2020. And have fun. See you soon. Bye. Oh, and feel free, please subscribe, leave comments, all that. Let me know what you're wanting to learn in 2021. Let me know if you know of any good trading APIs in Europe, in France specifically. But and see you soon. Thanks. Bye.